What's up, guys? Welcome back to Roensch Capital Charts. Today we're taking a look at Nvidia stock, ticker symbol NVDA, on a variety of time frames in anticipation of the next trading day, Wednesday, February 21st. Well, you guys, Nvidia stock down about 31 points a share. Of course, it's a more expensive stock in terms of price, so 31 points a share sounds crazy, but it's 4.35%. You know, we've seen bigger out of that, out of Nvidia in both directions. So it's a volatile name. So if you sign up for a volatile name, expect volatile moves, okay? So we saw that bigger dump off, you know, quote unquote dump off here, off the open. There's really not a lot of business specific catalysts here in terms of Nvidia itself today. What we are seeing is a big day in terms of the charts on Nvidia, and I would say macro concerns in general as we head into earnings here tomorrow from a few other companies that reported today or this morning. Okay, so let's dive in here to Nvidia and take a look at this on a number of different time frames here. Really quick before we do, thank you guys very much. We hit the goal of 1,000 subs by market open today, so now we have to set a new goal. I'm going to set a goal of 2K by market open this coming Monday. If you guys get value out of these videos, please subscribe to the channel, and I will continue to provide you value in the manner that I already have been trying to do so. I appreciate it. Let's move on. Starting here on the 1 minute chart, let's zoom in here a little bit. What I want to do is take a look. You guys know I'm a scalper at heart. That's what I do every day. So starting on the 1 minute chart, I want to look at some intraday opportunity that may have occurred today to generate some revenue, right around what would be a core position typically, that we can maybe look to replicate tomorrow here on Nvidia. Now, taking a look at the stock intraday here today, was Nvidia in play? That depends how you are gonna say a stock is in play, right? For me, the only thing that would have made Nvidia particularly in play intraday today for significant scalping edge would be that it was trading around that $700 region, which is a huge level. I wouldn't say we saw insane RVol today, relative volume. We didn't really have a massive catalyst pushing this thing all around. But listen, here's what I will say. There is opportunity in a trade, in a stock like this that's moved in the way that Nvidia moved this morning, intraday. And just really quickly, this is maybe a little bit more advanced topic, but let's just explain really fast. When you see the stock dump off like this, okay, the more it goes and the more aggressive it goes without, this part's really important, without a news catalyst, a fundamental change, the further it goes, right, from a fundamental trading perspective, the further it goes, the better potential long entry it is. Again, very important without a news catalyst, okay, without a fundamental change. So what some traders that I know and know of do is, if they're more intraday swing traders rather than scalpers, what they do is they actually look for stocks that are pushing its ATR off the open, or even like within an hour and a half, 2 hours after the open, without a catalyst that justifies that. And then what they'll do is they'll take entries and they'll accept getting stopped out with tight stops, and they're looking to catch the curl, okay? So in a case like Nvidia today, if someone entered here, right, let's say 697, they entered with small size, they get stopped. Okay, they enter at 692 or 690. They enter with small size, they get stopped. They enter down here, they start taking entries at 680. Okay, and they enter with bigger size as the trade fundamentally becomes a slightly higher quality trade, right? With a tight stop, they enter at 680. And then they catch that curl and they leave it on for the majority of the day, and they could have caught, you know, you're usually not going to catch the whole move. Let's say you take that off heading into volume weighted average price, they catch 10 points. All right, and even though they only won 1 out of 3 intraday swing trades on this particular name, they still made a bunch of money. They increase the size as the stock comes lower and lower on no fundamental change, okay? And then it turns into an intraday swing, and they keep the stops tight so that they can ensure, even with a low win rate, with low what's called accuracy, that reward to risk ratio still has edge. Very basic concept, very powerful. Okay, people have made lots of money trading this concept, and it's not complicated at all. Okay, let's move on now. That was, of course, the intraday mentality. As far as scalping edge, not really a ton on Nvidia, but intraday swing, some traders I'm sure made a lot of money catching that little curl, as they adjust their positioning as the stock comes down. So let's take a look now at the 5-minute chart and look at volume, because we had this big downside move. I want to look at volume to see, did a bigger sample size of the market agree with that downside move today? Now, what's interesting here is contextually, we have to know that the volume off the open is always going to be higher. This candle here on this bigger dump off candle, to me, that is interesting. However, we had a large bottom wick, which tells me that a lot of this volume was actually likely hitting the offer. So for me, that it kind of explains this massive volume, because you had a large mix, okay? And then you had a slight increase here, but this was more so kind of a bottoming candle. I mean, we did fade, but I mean, we finished the day higher than this candle. So in my opinion, in terms of volume bias here on the 5-minute chart on Nvidia today, not a lot. Which, if you're a bull on a day like today where the stock's down 4.35%, that's probably your ideal scenario, right? You probably wouldn't want to see massive, ridiculous bias on these selling candles. 5 million plus volume on the red candles for 5 candles straight. Not what we saw at all today. So let's move on now to the 30-minute chart and start taking a really close look at levels to keep an eye on as we head into tomorrow, which of course after the market closes is earnings day. So we have the 50-period moving average here, and we have the 200-period moving average here, that gray line. So today's downside move, listen, it's going to take time for the 50-period and the 200-period moving averages to make a downside move with the stock. But listen here, if you're a bear, that's actually not a great thing, right? Because if you're a bear, you would ideally want to see as many psychological resistance areas, barriers back to the upside, moving downside, getting like up above, like when we have an upside move of this equivalent, we would say getting feet up under the move. In this case, you would say like moving the ceiling down, so to speak. But if you're a bull, I mean, the stock did what it did today, right? It's down 4.35%. So now we look at, okay, what's the realities here? Or what are the realities here? Well, the reality is that even the fastest moving big self-fulfilling prophecy indicator is still up at 715.25. Okay, ideally that would be my ideal scenario, because I want to reclaim 7. I've been talking about this forever. I would ideally like to see Nvidia above $700 a share heading into earnings. Okay, and this leaves a gap to do that. A psychological gap, at least on this particular time frame. Okay, so that's really what I'm watching here on the 30-minute. Let's move on now to the 4-hour. You can see here on the 4-hour, kind of a similar deal. That 50 period that we gave up today is right around 713.75. Ideally, I would love to reclaim that, yes, but it leaves room without that psychological barrier, at least on the most commonly watched moving averages. Leaves room to help make an upside move given any kind of strength in the underlying or in Nvidia here tomorrow, Wednesday during the day, heading into earnings. Okay, let's take a look now at what's going to be the most important chart of all, which is the daily, as we head into tomorrow. Now you look here, there is really, that 50-day is down at 575, the 200-day is down at 465. So we're looking at big levels. Listen, I'm gonna make this really simple. The simple story for me, with my belief that all TA is psychological and it's all self-fulfilling prophecies. There are decisions made around the levels because people think there should be decisions made around the levels. The obvious story, the one that anybody can come up with the first time they ever look at a stock chart, is typically the one to follow, because the most eyeballs are going to be on that story. So tell me, what are we looking at here? Right? $700 a share, clearly. For me, as we head into earnings tomorrow, and I'll give you the expectations here in a second, as we head into earnings tomorrow, I just want to see, from a bullish perspective, a reclaim of $700 a share. Okay, and if I'm a bear, the last thing I want to see is a reclaim of $700 a share. It would be a bear's dream to see this thing head into earnings with space to the downside between the stock price and 700. Okay, and you can see here, the daily is not really going to reflect after hours, but looking at the after hours, yeah, it's down about, 5-6 points in the after hours. Just understand here, contextually speaking, This is the volume after hours here. Incredibly, incredibly low. So make sure you just take that with a grain of salt here. Okay. Listen, 700 is the story as we head into earnings tomorrow. All right. One more thing. Well, a few more things here. First of all, implied volatility. That's your implied volatility graph. It's high. So those of you that are going to hold options through earnings tomorrow, please, please, please pay attention to this. It is highly likely. It happens way more often than not every time, but way more often than not, that implied volatility dumps after earnings, because implied volatility is literally the expected volatility being priced in by the options traders. That naturally goes down after we have a volatility event happen, because that event is no longer on the horizon. So those of you that are holding purchased options through earnings, understand that you're probably, if this ends up falling, you're likely going to have to outrun what is sucked out of your contracts in terms of value through the Greek vega, which is implied volatility's influence on the actual value of your contracts. Okay. You're going to have to outrun that decrease with a delta increase even more than you would have to implied volatility held equal. So understand that when you buy options, you want IV to go up. You're accepting heading into earnings that it's most likely that it goes down. Okay, so it's a slightly elevated probability of IV crush. Just understand that. Options sellers, by the way, you like when IV goes down. Okay, let's take a look now at the bias in the chain. Really quick here, the earnings expectations for tomorrow, of course, EPS, the expectation is 4.64. This might vary depending on your source. And the revenue is 20.55 billion. Now, here in the chain, heading into earnings tomorrow, we have 1.22 million total contracts traded. 735,000 of those were calls. 483,000 of those were puts. So we are seeing a relatively heavy, at least for Nvidia, right, bullish bias here as we head into earnings tomorrow, which on a down day I wouldn't say is so unexpected. It's actually interesting to see that we're seeing contrarians outweighing those who believe that this downside is going to continue into earnings. Now, short-term speculators, guys, these are literally, if you ask me, the 0 to 20 delta range, literally earnings bets. Okay, 305,000 calls, 228,000 puts. So we are seeing a bullish bias in the short-term gambly style speculative nature of those contracts, or that range, so to speak. Now listen, as someone who has been burned bad, in my earlier trading days, I got burned bad on a number of earnings reports. Please, it's not worth it. Manage your risk. The options traders can absolutely be wrong, and no one trade is worth not being able to trade, at least for a period of time, okay? So listen, whether you're positioned long, you're positioned short, manage your risk. The options traders, listen, they're oftentimes wrong, okay? But that's what they're telling us. They're bullish, at least on average, heading into earnings here tomorrow on Nvidia. Listen, if you guys want to come trade with me every single day, come join the Roensch Capital Gold server. I'm sending my own personal scalp setup alerts, swing trade setup alerts, human verified unusual options activity that I think is really important to watch. I've been tracking that for years. Gives us some insight into what the big guys, the whales, the moves that they're making. Oftentimes, I like to think that with some of these positions, it seems like someone may know something. Okay, I'm tracking that on purpose. And if you're really looking to expedite things in your journey, I think Platinum One-on-One is a great option for you. You can find all that at that first link in the pinned comment. I appreciate you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.